have recording permission that would like it. If I missed anyone. You're happy?
Yeah, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie. So
let me just check. Yeah, I've got it.
Excellent. We're ready when you guys are then. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Ron. It's Colin here from Longbangers. Much of the noise around the Hibs support centres around the perception of recruitment has been inadequate, both in terms of player recruitment and with Sean now leaving management recruitment. Recruitment and players and management are critical to the success of the club. We're wondering what gives you confidence that the people responsible for recruiting players and managers are qualified, experienced and good enough to successfully recruit again?
Well, I mean, I would agree with you a little bit on, I don't know that I would agree with your premise of your question, because I don't see where you see that the recruitment has not been good enough, other than on the coaching side, we took a risk with Sean. That was and I'll take full responsibility for that. It was a risk, to bring in we thought an exciting young Scottish manager with credentials and pedigree. I want Hibs to be an innovative club that's always kind of on the leading edge. So that was a little bit of the thinking, and it's certainly I had, before finalizing the deal with Sean and making the appointment, we did have this conversation about the risk for the club, and it was a risk, and unfortunately it didn't pan out. So it could have panned out, and we would be having a different conversation. Then on the recruitment, I don't in terms of player recruitment, I don't really buy the premise that it's not been good enough, because I do think that when you look at the players that we've been bringing in, there's a certain caliber and level, perhaps a little bit on the younger side, and we need to maybe balance that out, and we have some holes that we need to fill. I think we're aware of that. But I think if you look at the players that have come in over the last 6 to 8 months, or 6 months, I guess, just mostly, Harry Clark, Rocky, Dimitri, Jasper, Ewan Henderson, Mueller, Melkerson up top. Those are all quality players. There's
a lot of players came in, but I think we're looking at the team on Saturday, not even many of them started, the guys that came in January. So I think that's where we're going with it. There was a volume of players, but they were deemed not available to play on Saturday, other than Ewan Henderson from the one, and Harry Clark, obviously just back from injury.
Harry Clark, yeah, exactly.
I think that's where we were going with that, rather than saying, so we're bringing volume in, but I don't know if we were in third place this time last year. We needed to add a couple of bodies to make us better, and despite all the bodies we've added, we're 7th in the league currently.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's why we made exactly why we've made the change. I guess my question would be, this at least is my perception, and I think probably shared, and I know it's shared by others. I mean, I think our squad is better than it's showing. I honestly believe on a man for man, when you look at our squad, we certainly have, in my opinion, a top 6 squad. Now, can we improve it? We need to improve it. At the top of the pitch, we've had issues. Losing Martin Boyle was not something that we wanted to do, and certainly was not in our plans, but circumstance kind of dictated that. Having Kevin get injured, having Christian Deutsch injured and not really kind of fully fit, losing Dimitri, losing Harry Clark. These are all significant players who give us offensive kind of energy, and we've lost them. So we have to rebuild that. And certainly the top of the pitch is an area where we're looking to strengthen this summer. But I think generally speaking, when I look at the recruitment, because we've also brought some younger players they're not aware of, I think the recruitment is actually headed in the right direction. You'll hit some, you'll miss some. That's part of the game. But I do feel that generally speaking, we're headed in the right direction. I mean, unless you feel that, I'd love your take on it, Colin. I mean, do you feel that the team today, man for man, is inferior than it was in November? I mean, if you want to go through the list and send me a note afterwards and say, you know what, I'm happy to do that. But I honestly think that we made a point of trying to upgrade. And again, we've expanded our budget, we've invested in it. But I honestly feel, and I think the board felt, that we're better than we're showing. We're better than we're showing. We're just not delivering on, I think, the skill set that we have and the quality that we have. And the beautiful thing about football is that everybody has an opinion, and that's my opinion. But I think it's seconded by quite a few people.
Ron, you mentioned the injuries and the like I say, there was a lot of young players brought in, and like I say, the sale of Martin Boyle as well. Were these things considered when evaluating Maloney's performance as manager, considering he never had these players at his disposal?
Yes, yes. So the discussions which we've been having for the last month or so, and informally and then more formally at board meetings and then special meetings to discuss football. We were concerned about the trend, to be honest with you, just of how we were heading as a club. And obviously when we had our meeting on Monday to kind of see where we were, we looked at all the options. The option was, one, to make the change, which we eventually kind of very, very decisively supported, or perhaps give Sean the rest of the season and evaluate it the rest of the season, or stay with Sean and give him more time. And I think there was a general feeling, which one board member kind of presented, which I think a good insight, was if we had been seeing the team progress collectively as a team week to week, that there was really improvement, or individual players that were improving, playing under Sean and what was going on, then it would have been perhaps a cause for us to say, you know what, we're headed in the right direction. He needs more time and we can get there. But I think the general consensus was that we weren't seeing that improvement week to week, that players were not better. And then it came again fairly definitive that it was the right time for us to make the change. And making the change yesterday, not waiting till the end of the season. Again, it's a question of that we're on the right track, and obviously by the decision, that the majority of the board, a significant majority of the board, felt that that was not the case. But by making the change yesterday, we give, I think, ourselves the biggest window to be able to hopefully, explore the marketplace to see who's available, to vet the potential candidates, and to make a selection before preseason in June.
Maloney had mentioned a bit of a rebuild over the summer in terms of the transfers. Is that still something that's the plan? And did you just feel that he was maybe not the man to kind of oversee that rebuild due to the performances on the pitch?
I think so. I mean, we lost some confidence in his ability. I mean, that obviously when you essentially terminate a manager, there's a lack of confidence in his ability to turn it around. So I mean, that's obviously part of the decision making. But the commitment, I think, is there for us this summer. We have some holes. We have some holes that we need to fill, and I think we're very focused on that. The only thing that's a caveat, which it's a real caveat, is we like to get the manager in place before we make some of these final decisions, because ultimately, they're going to be playing for that individual, and we want to make sure that he's comfortable with whomever we bring to the club.
Hi, Ron, Matty from Long Bangers here. From the outside looking in, it looks like the club is regressing rather than pushing forward. So our second bottom six finish in 3 seasons. We've lost to Hearts at Hampden twice in recent years. We've gone through a manager there in 4 months, 19 games. The question we'd be getting asked from our listeners is to ask kind of what's going on at the club and what are you doing to give us the confidence that it's going to improve going into next season.
Well, I can understand that perception, but I would just kind of counter it by saying that the club is doing a lot of things right. I mean, I know that we are making improvements across the boards, to be honest with you, but we have not gotten the football right. And if you don't get the football right, it kind of permeates everything, and it creates a dark cloud over what, to be honest with you, at every part of the club, including the football, we've made some significant progress. We have kind of a better organization and structure at HTC. We've made some investments in terms of the infrastructure, and we're going to continue to make those investments. Our development team, which was non-existent, is now fully funded, and the roster is a healthy roster. We've made some investments in terms of our budget. Year to year, we've added at least 35% to the player budget, and almost 60%. And on the business side, which is because that actually fuels investment in the club, with the investments that we've made in the infrastructure at Easter Road, the partnerships that we're getting in terms of corporate sponsors, the new initiative that we just launched for hospitality. I know that fans don't really care about that as much, but that fuels growth, which provides revenue to invest in the football. And ultimately, if you look, I can kind of summarize our strategic goal in one sentence: revenue growth. For us to compete at the top of the table, we need to have top of the table kind of money. And right now, when I arrived at Hibs 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we were a distant fifth, closer to Motherwell in terms of revenue than we were to Hearts. And right now, we've bridged that gap substantially. Had we finished in the top 6, we would have been knocking on the door. But we did not finish in the top 6, which is a major disappointment. But if we finish in the top 6 and are competing for Europe, we're in the hunt with Aberdeen and Hearts in terms of revenue. And that's really, for us to compete, we need to be there. And fans need to understand that. You can't be spending, I don't know, I don't know what's a good example, but a little Toyota money and expecting that you want to drive a Ferrari. And everybody wants to drive, everybody wants us to be a Ferrari. But for us to have a Ferrari, we need to have the money to drive the Ferrari. And so I see the progress. So this year, despite the failings on the football pitch, we have grown our revenues by 50%. And that's progress to me. Now, we didn't get the football right. I agree, and I apologize to supporters for that, because it's absolutely my responsibility at the end of the day to make sure that we get the whole organization functioning correctly. But I apologize to supporters for not delivering on that, because that's my ambition as well. I hope that the fans see a lot of progress in many, many, many areas. The football has not been right, and I get it. I absolutely get it, and we got to get it right. So we're going to continue to work until we get it right. That's the key.
Thanks.
Ron, Liam from down the slope here. I just want to ask, at your first AGM, you shared a very exciting and comprehensive 5-year plan for the club. How does sacking a head coach 4 months into his tenure and relieving Jack Ross of his duties earlier on in the season fit in with that 5-year plan? Does it delay it in any way?
It doesn't really. That it would step back. We kind of reset. We have to reset. So that, unfortunately, it's, believe me, I think I'm very disappointed in where we are, and I take full responsibility for that from a footballing perspective. But I do think that, again, the vision and the plan that we have is a very solid one, and we're making progress. So we need to get this next appointment right, is my absolute hope. You never really know, but we are going to be more diligent and hopefully make the right appointment. And I think we're going to give the new manager, which we gave, the one thing I think you can, whether perhaps maybe Sean might not feel this way, but I think Jack certainly felt this way, and that the club stands behind its manager, supports its managers, and we're going to do that. We're going to do the same thing with the next appointment. So it's unfortunately we took a risk and it didn't pan out, and Ron, I guess you could say we could have given him more time, Sean more time, but I think given the circumstances, we thought it was the right thing to do, but creates instability, which is not good. So we want stability.
Hi, Ron.
Just Ewan from down the slope. Just on the back of
Who's
what
there?
you've said. Just on the back. It's Ewan from down the slope. Just on the back of what you've said there.
Oh, how are you, Ewan?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? What measures can we put in place to ensure that we get the head coach correct this time, and hopefully we're not in this position in 4-6 months to a year?
Well, I mean, we are going to, I think, be a little bit more diligent, take a little bit more time, which is, again, we have 2 months to try to get it right, We're putting together we've already started, obviously, the work to see who's available and who's out there. I think to some degree, we're probably going to be a little bit more shy about too many risks in what we do. We probably want somebody who's a little bit more experienced, I think, just can come in and understands what it's like to manage a professional club of the size of Hibs. I don't know if it was in this call but the previous one. At the end of the day, we did take a risk with Sean, but it's a tough club. I mean, for this to be your first rodeo as a head coach and manager, and you making the decisions. It's a club that's, it's big. There's a lot of expectations. It's demanding. It's a very visible job. And I think we probably need somebody who's been there before so that they know exactly what to expect. And we're putting together to the candidates. So we're going to be a little bit more thorough in our process. And hopefully that will help us get it right.
Hi, Ron. Firstly, thanks for obviously taking the time to do this with us, given the decision that was made yesterday. There's been a lot of discussion online, as fans, we see a lot of the fan media side of things. And there's been a lot of discussion online recently about the sort of identity change within the club. We've had Sue McLernan leave the club recently after such a long period of time. Our former kit man was at the club for so long. Colin and Kenny Miller, both Hibs fans, worked for the club as well. What would your message be to fans who feel that the club is going too far in a commercial direction, and losing that sort of, in-house Hibs feeling around the club?
I guess it depends on what the fans want. Do they want a homey type? I love Sue, Colin, Kenny, terrific. They were terrific. So there's nothing, there's nothing that I can say other than they were terrific at the club. To some degree, Colin opted to leave himself, Sue as well. These are not decisions that we made, but ultimately, I guess what we're trying to do, and that was part of the plan, is to professionalize the club. If we want to compete at a certain level and we want results, etc., we need to bring excellence and a winning culture to the club. If we just want to be average, which I think to some degree the history of Hibs has been about that. It's okay. Things like persevere to me don't really inspire me because it means that you never quite get there, that you're always trying, but you never get there. Or Hibbed it. That to me has got to disappear from our lexicon. We cannot Hib it. We got to win. We got to compete. We got to be excellent at what we do. And so when, people, and to do that, you need to bring top professionals to the club, top performers in everything. And the whole idea here was to build, and it is to build, a top-notch organization. Now, that means we care about our staff, we care about people, we want to create a culture of real integrity and camaraderie and collective effort. Yes, some changes were made, but to be honest with you, I think when you look at the caliber of the professionals at the club today, we are much further ahead. Look at every metric, other than the first team performance. Other than the first team performance, which I grant and not acceptable, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. If you look at every other measure, our sales in terms of commercial, up. Our sponsorship value, up. Our sales in the store, up. Our engagement with fans on social media, super up. New products, up. content, top notch. The development team investment, it's there. The infrastructure at HTC, new canteen coming, the new pitches, all good. The U18 team, phenomenal. What else can I tell you? I mean, so when you look at all this, you have to say, the club is moving in the right direction, but I get it. We did not get the football right. And that's costly, very costly. So we got to get it right. But I don't really buy into the fact that we're not making progress. I think we're absolutely making terrific progress.
Sorry, guys. I'm just going to
Thanks,
say we're
Ron.
going to have to wrap it up fairly quickly, if that's okay. So just a couple more. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, Ron. This is Calvin from the Strong Opinion Hibs podcast.
Strong opinion. I love the strong opinion.
You were on our podcast earlier, if you remember.
I know,
earlier
I
in the
know.
year. Appreciate that. But no,
You're
just
very welcome.
before you made the decision to relieve Sean Maloney of his duties, did you have a short list of candidates already there with replacements for him? Or are we back to square one, sort of, in terms of looking for a candidate? How far along are we in that process?
We did have a list. I think a good club always has a list. You may not look at it because you don't want to undermine the manager you have. But ultimately, I think any good club always has to have some kind of succession planning. Probably one of the most curious things that I learned early in my due diligence when looking at Hibs, the average tenure of a manager in British football is 18 months. So it's that's substantial turnover. The Alex Fergusons at Man United for 30 years, or the Werners at Arsenal for 20 some odd years, those are exceptions to the rule. But we need stability. We need to have kind of, hopefully my goal is to have managers that are with us for 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and they succeed to such a level that they move on to higher and better clubs. So I haven't gotten that right, no question about it. But we always have had a list, and we do have a list now. We've polished it up here in the last few days, and we do have some candidates that we feel are attractive options for us.
Okay.
Last
Thank you.
question then, please, guys. Thank you.
We're already beginning the dialogue.
Okay, is it all right if we get one?
Yeah, last one, please. Thank you.
Hi, it's Gavin from Hibs.net. So in the interest of talking about sort of professionalizing the club and integrity, I think a position that's obviously key to what we do from the footballing perspective, which is the area you've identified isn't progressing, is obviously the head of recruitment. And I think, to sort of ask a direct question, but I hope you take it at face value, just be interested to know what qualities our head of recruitment has to hold that role, and whether because of the connections to yourself, that position might actually be untouchable.
No position is untouchable. No position is untouchable. I would start by saying that. Whoever is not doing a good job at the club and is not contributing to the success of the club is not going to work. And I'm not going to, what you will find in me is a commitment to Hibs, I think second to none. And we want to be absolute. I'm not going to trade off a commitment to excellence if it's not happening. So I know it's easy to me, to be honest with you. I get why people ask the question whether Ian is the right guy for that particular job. I get it. He's my son, but I think he's working extremely hard. He has very good insights, and he's put together, I think, a very solid team to help him. But he is just one player in a team of the recruiting department. He doesn't make the decision. He coordinates the vetting of the options that the club has. That's really what the recruitment department is doing. At the end of the day, we have a committee that decides, largely to some degree. The manager has to some degree the final say, right? We're not gonna stick the manager with a player that he doesn't want, but we're gonna bring to the manager the best options. And the recruitment department, what they're doing is essentially vetting the potential candidates. Are they available? Can we afford them? How much do they cost? What would be the personal terms? Those kinds of questions. That's the homework that's being done by the recruitment department. But the recruitment department isn't isn't kind of making the decision and who comes. So I think we're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill with this particular issue, because I do feel that the recruitment department is, I mean, I see the candidates that they're bringing to the table, and there are lots of them and all good. And it's just a question of picking the right one, and you hope you pick the right one. So I know that this is a little bit of a niggle for some people, but you know, I just see the recruitment department at this point has 6 people, and I do think instinctively the work that's being done there is quite good. You know, I mean, again, the proof will be in the pudding, but you know, unless I'm missing something, I do think that we've made some significant progress in terms of the caliber of player that we're bringing to the club. Now, are we going to get some right? Yes. Are we going to get some wrong? Absolutely. That's just part of the game. The whole idea here is to get more right than wrong. But you know, I get your question. So it's not, Gavin, it's not like I'm taking offense to it, because I get why you asked the question. But you know, this is not a, you know, he's my son, but I can tell you that I think he's working extremely hard with the team to do the best for Hibs. He's as committed as we all are to making this a phenomenal club.
Brilliant. That's great, guys. Thank you very much for jumping on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
guys
for
very
that.
much.
Cheers,
Invite me
Ron.
to your podcast. Invite me to your podcast. I'll come.
Anytime.
We'll hold you to that, Rod. Yeah.
Anytime.
All right, very good. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Cheers.